title Feeling Blue actually is derived from traditions from seafaring, from nautical histories. When a captain or an officer died at sea, you would have the hull of the ship painted with a blue band, or the sailors would identify with wearing some kind of blue. And so this idea of grief, and in particular blue or the blues, became really synonymous. And then when we started thinking about the Queen's House as a space for creation, a space for thinking about hierarchies of class, of wealth, of who is deserving of being memorialized, it just seemed to feel so ideal to really situate the work, to situate this tapestry within that space.
So at Royal Museums Greenwich, we have this incredible historic art collection, but what we're interested in doing is working with contemporary artists who can respond to and sometimes challenge that collection. Blue is also a really special colour for the Queen's House. You can see it in a lot of the original 17th century decoration, including the ceiling of the King's Presence Chamber or the balustrade of the Tulip Stair. And in using that same shade of blue, particularly in the borders of the tapestry, that's Queen's House blue. In the borders of the tapestry feeling blue, that's the colour you'll see around the Queen's House.
So the design for the tapestry actually, I always like to work in watercolours. I find watercolours to create these wonderful moments of looseness in my paintings, which I've found to be resolved so beautifully with working in tapestry. But the imagery which I wanted to feed into this was really thinking about this phrase, feeling blue, which I wanted to be very bold and strong, but also for it to have almost this linkage to sometimes mythological paintings, which have these very strong borders, which suggest nautical creatures. It's a really collaborative process, coming in here and thinking about the techniques, but also the different materials we might bring into it becomes a way to improvise and think quite quickly and problem solve, but also, again, have this really much wider awareness of histories and the stories we're trying to tell in this commission.
We do a lot of sampling and experimenting to find out the language of the tapestry and to capture the artist's handwriting. This tapestry is woven mostly in cottons and linens because that works with the design and the effect. We've used a lot of different techniques in this tapestry, knotting, double weave, and a lot of quite interesting materials to give effects.
A tapestry cutting off is a very special occasion. It's the first time that everybody gets to see a tapestry. So in this case, it's been 900 hours, over a mile of warp, over 16 miles of yarn, and at least 150 colours. So on that fantastic note, we are going to cut the tapestry.
The completed tapestry will go on display in the Queen's House in Greenwich, alongside many other highlights from our historic art collection.